Welcome back to Takeover. You're watching Africa's biggest tech conversation. Time now for our innovator this week. Your segment of Startup of the Week is on air. The COVID-19 pandemic heralded a new dawn for the logistics sector. With contained movement and contact, the directives to have only essential goods and services distributed meant there was going to be a surge in demand for logistics services. However, there was a challenge. The distribution and how to find the truck drivers was a pain for vendors who had now also resolved to e-commerce. At the time, young tech founders began to innovate and create centralized platforms where vendors and buyers could access these drivers and get services. Among them, Charles Tuo, a Kenyan resident in America and the founder of Epix Loads, an e-logistics firm that links vendors with reliable transport services in East Africa.
We started development in around August of 2020.
Okay.
So whenever we started, I had the idea. We thought this is something that we can build in like 6 months.
Yeah.
Ended up taking a year and a half. Okay. I'm pretty sure a lot of founders can relate. But we started development about a year and a half later, launched in the market in November of 2021. So started a trucking company in Oklahoma.
Okay.
So we bought a truck and I was hiring a driver. But what you notice about logistics, you don't make a lot of money doing local stuff.
Yeah.
You have to do long distance.
Yeah, long distance.
But long distance means you're not going to be home every night, right? So that's the catch. And a lot of drivers don't like that, so the retention is not that great.
Okay.
You know, some drivers want to be home every night, some want to be home every weekend, which is a challenge. But then by, getting into the industry, I was fully independent. I had my own license, authority, so I was the one, independent. So booking loads, compliance. So I got into the thick of it.
Okay.
And then it got to a critical point where I was paying my driver more in a week than I was getting paid in 2 weeks as an engineer. And I was like, wait a minute, like what's going on here, right?
No way.
Yeah, I tell that, a lot of people don't believe because we grew up thinking, if you're from Africa, you gotta be the lawyer, engineer, doctor.
Yeah.
But actually, the guy fixing your plumbing actually makes more money than you.
And just like that, they created what would be called the Uber of logistics, serving Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania at the moment. However, he admits that this is a masses and volumes game, and the business gets profitable the more numbers you have.
What a lot of people don't understand about logistics, majority of people who perform those tasks are small companies.
Yeah.
Like let's say in North America, 70% of trucking companies only have one truck. In Africa, that's like 80 to 90%. It's only a few companies that have like 100 plus trucks.
Yeah.
But what that means, if you have like 1 or 2 trucks, you don't have the capacity to get a direct contract. Let's say like Unilever will never work with you if you have 1 truck.
Yeah, true.
You don't have the capacity.
You don't have the capacity.
But now, if you're a transporter with 1 or 2 trucks, you have to rely on freight brokers and freight forwarders to get your cargo.
Yeah.
But then now, how do you find these guys? And then that's when you see, like in Kenya, in Africa in general, a typical broker or transporter will have like 5 to 7 WhatsApp groups. And that's how they find each other, which is chaos because you might find some of these groups have like 200 members, 700 members, 800 members. And in the same groups, there's people looking for work, there's people selling their trucks, there's people doing all kinds of,
other trades.
So it's not the most convenient way to match.
This is how the app works.
We have systems, systems that empower 3PLs to be able to find each other.
Yeah.
And one of those systems is what you call a load board. Yeah. And the simple concept of a load board is if you have cargo, you go on the load board and you post it.
Okay.
So if you're a broker, post, hey, I have a load from Mombasa to Kampala, I need a flatbed, where is this much? And I'm paying 2,000.
Okay.
And then myself as a transporter, I will go on the same board and now I can see, I say, hey, there's a load. And you call the broker, hey, I'm calling about your load from Mombasa, which it creates a controlled environment to streamline that matching. So whenever we looked at that did not exist in Africa, that's when we're like, hey, you know how this works.
Yeah, why didn't we put these things together?
We just build one, and that's how Apex Lotto was born.
Charles says regulatory setbacks are the biggest hindrance to their driver verification.
Credibility is a currency in logistics because this cargo is worth a lot of money.
Yeah, true.
And my biggest proposition that I say is like right now, let's take for instance the ride-hailing apps.
Yeah.
If you order a ride, you're not worried about getting into a car with a stranger.
Yeah.
Or if you get one of these platforms to book a hotel,
yeah,
or someone's house, you're not worried about sleeping in a stranger's house. There's an element of trust on the platform. And that is the same trust that we need to implement in logistics in Africa. But how do we do that? Because whenever we launch in the market, and that question will come up, like, hey, Charles, how do I know I can trust this guy that I'm meeting on your platform?
Yeah.
And that's when we realize there's a regulation gap. Because like right now, if I'm going to verify a transporter in Kenya, I have to go to like 3 different organizations.
Yeah.
So my KYC would take anywhere from 3 to 7 days. So
you're checking at NTSA, all these
NTSA, CR12, insurance. I gotta go to IPRS, verify your ID. But now, so we created to provide that infrastructure for credentials verification.
Wow.
So we created the ESC profile.
Wow.
Because if you look at the same KYC that DHL is going to do, is the same KYC that AGL or SIVA or all these brokers are going to do.
Sure.
But the problem is they're not going to share that with someone else. But if we create a centralized database where everyone is verified, now you can own up the whole industry.
Okay.
And now that is the infrastructure that's why to promote credentials. So right now we call it the ESC profile. So once I verify you, I issue you a 6-digit number called an ESC number.
Wow.
You can think of it like a Huduma number.
Like a
you know,
Huduma
if I had
number,
I can see everything about you.
Yeah.
So if you're a transporter, I can see how many trucks you have, where your location is, how many drivers you have, what type of cargo that you're dealing. If you're a broker, I know where your address is. That way, if I deliver your load, I'm not worried about you disappearing with the money, because it happens.
Yeah.
Or if you're a transporter, I'm not worried about you selling my cargo along the way, because it also happens.
Yeah. And so who insures the cargo?
Insurance is a key component, because where you find like in Africa, there isn't a distinction between the liability of the truck and the cargo protection. There's no cargo insurance. Some people have like a goods in transit, but that should be the responsibility of a transporter. Because if this cargo is on your truck, you're responsible for it.
Yeah, true.
So you're liable for it. But now you find that, like, let's say in Kenya, let's say the maximum a policy will cover is like 10 million.
Yeah.
But that is the truck and the cargo. But now, how much is a truck? It's like 9 or 10 million.
9 or 10 million.
So if I get into a wreck, I don't care about the cargo. I'm going to focus on replacing my truck. Because even if you don't give me a load, at least I got my truck back. So these are some of the conversations that we're trying to have with the Insurance Regulation Authority.
Okay.
That, hey, we need some policies.
Okay.
We need to have separate insurance covers. And also, like, what you find, which is very interesting, like in Kenya, you might have someone who has 3 trucks, but those 3 trucks have 3 different insurance policies. And that makes it very difficult to monitor compliance. So all those trucks should be under the same policy.
Okay.
And that way you don't have insurance gaps.
And just how do the markets compare?
Uganda is landlocked, you know, so you're not going to find a lot of freight forwarders, mostly broker dominated. But, you know, in Kenya, Tanzania, that's where you're going to find most of the brokers.
Okay.
Kenya is more open to adopting technology.
Sure.
Tanzania, you know, even there's some infrastructure issues whenever it comes to connectivity. Okay. Uganda also lags a little behind. So majority of the reception, you're going to get it from Kenya. But then you also got to consider like dynamics. Where is a lot of this cargo moving from? Because if you look at East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, there's only 4 main logistics hubs. You know, Mombasa, Nairobi, Kampala, and Dar es Salaam. Obviously, Mombasa and Dar es Salaam, that's where you're going to have a lot of volume. So whenever it comes to users, most of our users are going to be in those 2 hubs. But then you also got to consider the dynamics. Like Tanzania, it's largely a cash market, which is what these guys trade in anyway, because it's very informal. So whenever you look at the adoption, once we crack Tanzania or East Africa, we anticipate majority of our users are going to be from Tanzania.
And that's our startup this week. I'll keep insisting, Kenyan innovators never cease to amaze me. And that is one of the biggest innovators we currently have. We're sampling his work this week. Let's now get the DIY for this week. Here is your tech tip, and then we'll just end the show.